The enemy comes like a prostitute that is seductive and on the side saying, hey, you're not getting what you thought you'd get over there, are you? I can give you everything that you want right here. I've got enough for you to drink in and drink all that you want. This is what you deserve. You are on a side. There's a battle, you are on a side. And so which side are you on? In Revelation, you can be either with Babylon or with New Jerusalem. Those are the two cities that are referenced all throughout Revelation. We don't see New Jerusalem in this week's message. We're going to see more of it in next week's message. By the way, did I tell you you should come back for next week's message? We're going to learn more about New Jerusalem. But what you do need to know what these sides represent. If you go to Jerusalem in the Old Testament, what is that? That is the capital of Israel, which is where God's people dwelt. If you remember, God brought them out of 4 centuries of slavery and oppression from Egypt, and they were in the wilderness for a while, but eventually would settle in the land of Israel. And in the land of Israel, the capital was Jerusalem. That is the place where God built his temple, and the temple was the central place where God dwelt with his people in those days. And next week, again, we're going to see New Jerusalem, which is called the Holy City in Revelation, descend and dwell upon but it's going to be in all of its glory and its perfection as it was always meant to be. Jerusalem was in the southern kingdom of Israel, and in 586 BC, because again, sometimes we need to remember these are not, there is so much Old Testament and actual history wrapped up in so much of what's going on in Revelation. In 586 BC, this is when God's people were conquered by King Nebuchadnezzar. Can you guess from which nation he came from? Babylon, which is present day Baghdad in Iraq. If you're wondering, like, where are these two on a map? That's where they are. And what did Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians do? They destroyed the temple of God in Jerusalem and ripped the people of God out of Jerusalem and brought them into exile for 70 years. And in the midst of those 70 years, you can see parts of this in the stories of Daniel and Jeremiah. In the midst of those 70 years, many of the Israelites who God had absolutely blessed had actually forsaken God and went into and sided with then the Babylonians. They fell into the Babylonian lore. And so when the great prostitute is called Babylon, we can understand that Jesus is giving, especially the readers in that day, an image that would strike a response in them, a remembrance in them. This is an enemy. There is great familiarity with this term. And that might be a disconnect today from readers if we don't understand who Babylon is and what their role is. But in that day, when you said the word Babylon in an Israelite to someone who's faithfully following Jesus, like that strikes emotion. It's not quite the same. Maybe some of you would say it is, but it's like if I were to say the word Vegas to you. That just brings a connotation to your mind that you understand exactly where I'm going. Even before, though, we get the actual name that the prostitute is called Babylon, the reader's minds would have already been thinking of this from verse 1 when it talks about the prostitute sits upon many waters. And the reason they would know that is because if you look in Jeremiah, there is a passage in there that Jeremiah actually says, Babylon, you who live by many waters. So he's talking about Babylon from the beginning of Revelation chapter 17. Babylon is situated on the Euphrates River, which if you didn't make that connection, last week the 6th bowl of plague was poured out on the Euphrates River. Again, Babylon, 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 all throughout the book of Revelation. It's the city of many waters because it had a canal system that distributed water through the city and region. And so, again, it's referenced in verse 1, but if there's any doubt, it's plainly named in verse 5. And what we need to know is that this is a formidable enemy. There is no disguise. Even it says the tattoo is on her forehead. Like, you know this is Babylon. It's that obvious. This is the enemy. At least it ought to be that obvious. Babylon or New Jerusalem? Which side are you on? Of course, as we read this, and as first century Christians read this, like we would never choose on our own to position ourselves to be with the side of the enemy. We'd never want to be on the side of Babylon after all that Babylon has done. We'd never want to be with the side of the one that's literally, in this figurative example, holding the cup of the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. We would never choose that. Are you kidding me? Not any one of us that believe in Jesus would say, that's the side I want to be on. Except, even though we know it's wrong, even though it's obvious, the tattoo on her forehead, there's something about her. We are drawn to her. We are seduced by her. She is riding the back of the beast. She is powerful, and she is fine, and she is looking at me and wants me on her side. Did you see her power? Her seductive charm, like it's pulled the kings of the earth. It says they were intoxicated with her and they drank the wine of her adulteries. They couldn't look away. I think sometimes wrongly when we think of the enemy, even with the dragon imagery that can be presented in Revelation, we think of Satan as this like red dragon with a pitchfork. They're like, if you see that coming after you, come on, you know you're moving away from that. But you know what the red dragon is really good at doing in the book of Revelation? He's really good at fooling us, at using stunning, beautiful, and charming things to do his work for him. And so we actually don't see the dragon as much as you think you would in Revelation. You know what you see on his behalf? That he's going to bring a prostitute, he's going to bring a beast from the earth, a beast from the sea, bring the things of this world to get you to focus on the glitz and glamour and beauty of those things, yet all along you didn't know that Satan was behind them. He uses beautiful things of this world to seduce you and trap you, to get you on his side without even knowing that you went to his side. And if you think I'm lying about this, like even John the Apostle, Holy John, the disciple, quote, whom Jesus loved, the one that laid his head on Christ's bosom, the one that was there the only one that was there at the cross, the one that so far has seen 16 chapters of God and his glory and how this all works out. Even John, when he looks at the prostitute, he says, I marveled at the sight of her. And the angel's like, hey, eyes up here, dude. I didn't put this in my notes, but like if you think that that you're not going to get seduced and lured by the enemy? Are you kidding me? And so for me, it put me in a place where this morning I was like, gosh, then we got to be less about judgment of others and thinking we're better than other people because of how easily it is to get seduced and lured. That in the fight, like how dare we like judge and place ourselves at a higher place because you don't know anybody else's story and you don't know what they're going through and you don't know how the enemies come after them. And the fight's big enough that we don't need to join forces against one another. God has no place for judgment and hierarchy inside the church. It's not what it's meant to be. Some of you haven't sinned and given into temptation, not because you wouldn't, just because you haven't been afforded the option. John marveled at her after he saw everything in all its glory. Are you kidding me to think that you wouldn't do that? And so in the great battle of our souls, one of the greatest tactics of the dragon is to lure us to his side without even realizing that we went. So what is John doing? He's warning those who are faithful, who are believers. He's warning the church, be careful. She's prettier than you think. She's more powerful than you imagined. She's better than what you thought. And especially when we're following the path of Jesus, which these first century Christians were, and things aren't going our way, and we're suffering, and we're being persecuted, and the devil comes into our lives and say, I thought with God all things work together, then why are you having a hard and a difficult time right now? Are you sure that's truth? And the enemy comes like a prostitute that is seductive and on the side saying, hey, you're not getting what you thought you'd get over there, are you? I can give you everything that you want right here. I've got enough for you to drink in and drink all that you want. This is what you deserve. Then the angel said to me as we pick it back up, why are you so astonished? My version of this is, eyes up here, dude. I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and of the beast she rides, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. And then he goes on to describe more. 7 heads. First, he says the 7 heads. He says those are 7 hills on which the woman sits. And that may not mean much to you right now, but that meant a whole lot to the first century readers because they would equate that with the city of Rome. Because did you know that Rome is known as the city of 7 hills? And so what the angel is telling John that he's writing to the people is right now there is a modern day agreement with the beast and the dragon. The political power that is largely the reason why you're being persecuted and why you're suffering has gone to the other side. And so number one, I see you in your intense suffering and your persecution. I know what you're going through. But number two, they've gone to the other side. That's what you need to know. And then the 10 horns, the angel says, what are they? They're 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom. And so not just Rome, the major political power, is riding along with the beast, but also now the beast is going to come to other nations and other kings, and they're going to have authority all together to come after you to wage war against you. And what many people do is they're like, well, what 10 kingdoms are there? I bet it was that king and that king and that king, and like they're trying to figure out what kingdom are we on right now. And again, I don't think that's what Revelation is trying to what number are we on right now? The point is that this is a formidable, powerful enemy that is bringing all the things of this world, even sometimes things inside the church, against the church itself. And we have to be alert and be careful because she's luring, she's seducing, and she's saying all the right things. But the truth is, she's making a lot of promises that she will never fulfill. They are empty promises. And this was happening back then, and it's happening right now. That this world, even the best of this world, will offer you so many promises that if you follow this and go after this, that this is where true happiness and joy comes from. And yet when you follow the ways of the world, when you follow the ways of Babylon all the way to the end, you will find that there is no more joy and there is no more happiness because it is without Christ. This is a message to stop worshiping temporary things. Stop getting distracted by the glitz and the glamour. Don't give in to the pleas to stop enjoying Jesus and stop praising Jesus and live for the things of this world. It's also a message of, I see you. I know what you're going through. And it will end well.